Hello, welcome to my podcast, Dumbo Speaks. Today, we will be talking about the urban legend, La Llorona. So, I just recently came across this story. It's a little version that I haven't heard before. Who knows if it's true or not, maybe not. A little fairy tale. Might be true though. It's taking a lot of kids in Mexico. So this one that I found particularly, sorry, I'm on my laptop. So if I look over here, just don't think I'm ignoring you guys. I'm not. So this story that I found particularly, so La Llorona starts off by a man of higher status marrying a woman of lower status, which is, to be La Llorona. And at first, everything is fine. The marriage goes well, and she gives him two sons. They have two sons together, but as their relationship goes on, the husband starts to lose interest in La Llorona, which that's what it seems. He starts abandoning the family, the kids and her for months at a time. He becomes an alcoholic, starts addicted to alcohol, and soon enough he abandons them completely, and he marries a woman of higher status, so similar status to him, since he was a higher class man. So once that happens, he only comes back to visit for his two sons. He completely disregards his ex-wife, La Llorona, and he only goes back to visit his sons, his two children. This causes La Llorona to get a lot of resentment towards her two sons. So as one day she sees they're walking across the riverbank, they're walking to the riverbank, La Llorona and her two sons, she sees her ex-husband with his new wife in a carriage passing by. Again, with the prior knowledge of her having a lot of resentment because he only comes to visit them and not her. And then once she sees this, it was the final straw. But keep in mind, the story also says that when she caught resentment with her children, she would take her anger out on them as well. She would hit them, malnourish them, push them, shove them, and just basically abuse her children and release her anger towards her husband on her children, because that's what he seemed to only care about, the children. So with them already being abused and her taking her anger out on them constantly, seeing her ex-husband with his new wife was literally the final nail in the coffin. Well, for the kids, literally. So she sees him, and that at the riverbank, and she decides to drown her kids in anger. With all the abuse that happened prior, that was the final straw. She drowned them, and obviously the children drowned. They floated up, and they were, I guess, in the riverbank. The stream was taking them, and as they're slowly disappearing, she starts to realize what she had done, and she, basically killed her kids. And she tries to go also find them, and she doesn't. So she spends nights, weeks, months weeping, and there's been several reports actually right here saying that there's been a lot of stories that where they hear a woman crying. The phrase mis hijos. The mis hijos directly translates to my children, obviously. So she decides to stop eating. She doesn't drink, doesn't eat, nothing. So she gets so super skinny to the point where she is literally a slim figure, just skin and bones, look almost directly similar to a skeleton. And she is also in the riverbank, and she ends up drowning herself. So she also meets the same fate as her children. And as a result of this, she does not get into heaven, obviously. So God has cursed her, and her soul, her spirit, roams the earth until she finds her two children. And this is where the stories of children going missing come in as well. So supposedly she takes only children. There's been other stories where there's been different when she appears in cars, and you see her on the side of the road, and if you refuse her to give her a ride, she appears in the back of your car. It'd be the scariest thing ever. Imagine looking in your rearview mirror and you see a woman like that. But this one doesn't mention that. This one just mentions that she only takes children who are wandering by the riverbank, and mistakenly, takes them as her children, so that she can get into heaven. And right here, I also have a photo of what La Llorona looked like in the actual Aztec days, because this story originates back to, Montezuma, all those colonizers. So this is what La Llorona would originally have looked like, back in, when they were barely colonizing Mexico and coming in to populate. So originally, that is what La Llorona looks like in Aztec culture. So that was one of the versions of her. Obviously, most people know her as, something similar to this. So a woman in a white gown, wandering by bodies of water. So, and that is where the story, this story ends. But not for us. No. We promote social justice. We promote real causes, real world things that are happening. So obviously, La Llorona doesn't find her kids, and she continues taking children who wander in the forest and by the riverbank as well. So that is where the story ends. That La Llorona still to this day, maybe not, is wandering the bodies of water all across Mexico, and maybe has been taking kids since the Aztecs were in Mexico. So, however, this also highlights an important problem that is currently still going on in our world today. That is still currently going on. And that is child abuse. Child abuse is a very real thing. It happens every single year, every single day. It can happen somewhere, someplace, and it can happen to anyone. Any child can be going through this, and we might never know. Just like for a perfect example of this would be the Gabriel Fernandez case. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but Gabriel Fernandez was a young kid, obviously, who was getting abused by his mom and his stepdad. And there was clearly many signs as he would go to school with bruises and stuff like that. There's a photo of him with a bruise, a literal black eye, and nothing was ever done until it was too late. So this is also highlighting something that is very important, very crucial, that is still going on today, that just happened literally about to be a decade ago. The murder of Gabriel Fernandez happened in 2013. We are April 14th, 2023. So it has been 10 years, and it has not been that long. This could have been somebody's younger brother, little brother, older brother, little cousin, little nephew, somebody. This could have been one of our family members. So it's something very real and very scary as well. So I would also love to highlight that April is actually children. It is National Child Abuse Prevention Month. April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month. So here I'm going to share some statistics about how often child abuse happens, how many, and what are ways we can do to prevent it, and actually catch it in its tracks before it's too late, just like the case of Gabriel Fernandez. So more than 600,000 kids or children are abused in the United States every single year, and that is a crazy number to think of. 600 kids, think about 600,000 kids, think about that. How many schools is that, to put in perspective? About, let's say, each school has 1,000 kids, 2,000 kids maybe. If you do the math, 1 second, I don't have a calculator, divided by, let's say, 2,000 kids in every school. 1 second. 300 schools across the nation, of every single kid, facing some sort of abuse. So that number is very astounding. It's very big, and that number should be zero. But unfortunately, we live in a world where that number is not. But we can do many things to prevent it. Also, child welfare authorities ensure the safety of more than 7 million kids. Obviously, we would love to ensure all kids, but all these kids, about 3.9 million have received an investigation or an alternative response from Child Protective Services agencies. So obviously we're trying our best to do what we can to save every single young child that is going through this. So obviously Nobody's perfect. Not every single case will get, the same attention or, will even be reported, but there are a number of workers that are doing amazing things, everything they can to save these kids from what they're going through. So, and around an estimated 2 million children received prevention services as well. So, ways to prevent child abuse and everything. I hope you guys like my Reggie headband. Got it. Very stylish. But yeah, how does child abuse impact kids? So obviously the youngest children are obviously the most vulnerable. You're young, obviously your brains are fully developed. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what they have done, which is probably the thought process of a 7-year-old kid. Gabriel Hernandez doesn't know what he did and is just getting constantly abused by his parents. So children in the first year of their life are 15% of all victims. So that's 1-year-olds. 1-year-old babies are 15% of the 600,000 kids. That is crazy. And to me, like, I would never be able to hurt a child. Like, I don't know how people do it. And the way that it would make me feel is just inexplicable. Like, there's no way to, like, explain that or, like, to put that into words. Like, that would make me feel like a terrible, terrible human being. Like, I would not be able to live with myself if I ever had done any stuff like that. I can't. I mean, just even thinking about it makes me, uneasy. So I'm sorry. I have to advocate for this because this is something that it's not right. It's something that shouldn't happen. So we also have child abuse broken down by demographics. So girls are at a rate of 8.9 out of 10, higher than boys, which are at 7.9, obviously. And American Indian and Alaskan Native children are the highest rate of victims at 15.5%, while African American children are number 2 at 13.2%. So this clearly affects minorities. This is a demographic that affects minority children more. So yes, child abuse is also deadly. In 2020, about 2,000 children died from child abuse and neglect. Those are 2,000 children. 2,000 young lives that were lost. Kids who could have been amazing. Kids who would have grown up to doing amazing things. Lost because of child abuse and neglect. Something that really has no place here. So yes. Nationally, neglect is the most type of abuse. Now, obviously, there's, hating and stuff like that, but neglection is the most type of common of abuse. Obviously, neglecting children, ignoring them, pretending like they're not there, not feeding them, just completely ignoring them, like if you don't have a child, when clearly you do. So, and obviously the others were about 75% of victims are neglected. So that is the very big portion of our statistics of population. Our numbers are neglection. While 16% are physically abused, 9% are sexually abused, and about 0.2% are sexually trafficked. So obviously there's still many different types of abuse, with the most common being neglection. But regardless, any abuse has no place here. So we need to work our hardest to get rid of this problem. Not rid of it, but reduce it to a minimum where we can get close to having those numbers at 0. So here's like a little demographic, a little photo which shows 2/3 of all cases. Sorry. Obviously you can see sexual abuse. Yeah, sexual abuse. Those are mostly all the cases that are handled. 2/3 of all cases involve some kind of child sex abuse. So would there be any type of sexual abuse, which is not good by any means. And obviously the demographic, I'm sorry. So most victims are actually abused by a parent. I'm sorry. I had to take a little break to read. So in about 80% of the cases, it is the parent doing this to the child. Now, obviously, there's grandparents, step-parents as well, which was the case of Gary Fernandez, but most of the time, it is their own, you know, the person who is supposed to protect them, guide them, and, you know, be there for them are the ones that are making their life that much more complicated for them. And, you know, these are my parents right here. It's my dad, my mom, and then that's me right there in the middle. You know, I have a photo of them, think about them every day. I'm grateful for them, having them. But yeah, I just couldn't, like, I can't see my parents doing any of that. And I'm pretty sure nobody wants to see their parent do that to them. So, you know, it's just something very sad that's going on, but I have to bring attention to it. I have to highlight it because it is something that needs to be highlighted. It needs to be talked about so that this can be prevented. And Gabriel Fernandez is not the only child. Obviously, it's, like I said, received more attention than other cases. But every case matters. Every child matters. Every child should have the opportunity to be able to grow up and be something great, be something amazing, be able to do whatever they would like and make it past, you know, these young ages. So I just wanted to highlight that today in my podcast. Thank you to all for listening to me. I know you guys like my drip. I know you guys like my headband. That's why you guys come in and tune in every single week. You know, Fridays, Fit Fridays. Today, just a white tee, little headband. It is what it is, something simple. But thank you to listening to my podcast, Dumbo Speaks. No special guest this time. I had to get a little serious with you guys on this beautiful Friday. Go out, enjoy the weather, enjoy your weekend, and stay smooth.